Last breaths are sacred. When I imagine my final days, I see bubbles. I see the ocean. I see music. Even now, as I seek help to end my life, there is still so much beauty. You just have to be brave enough to see it.
Suicide is one of the #1 causes of death in young people in most Western countries, including the United States. And so for that, it's a very serious topic that I don't want to make light of. I've had a friend who killed himself. Many of you have friends and family. One of my young friends growing up, his mom accidentally killed herself with opiates. But suicide is coming back into trend. In fact, who you just saw was Jennifer Hatch. She was 37. She was the subject of a controversial campaign by the Canadian fashion giant La Maison Simons, or La Maison Simon, I'm not sure how you say it, about the new trendy way to repackage suicide as an alternative to treatment and to therapy. It's called MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying. It's now emerged that this person in the video who we are celebrating took life into her own hands. They're calling it elected death. Like it's a breast augmentation. It's an elective surgery. She's now emerged that she gave an interview in June in which she complained about, quote, falling through the cracks of the Canadian government-funded healthcare system as she tried to get treatment for her illness. She was left behind. And the All Is Beauty commercial, which included audio of Jennifer talking about her sacred last breaths, it's eerie, it's almost dystopian. It was fiercely criticized over claims that it glorified suicide. The commercial came amid fierce debate around Canada's relaxed euthanasia laws, which are becoming increasingly more common and even promoted to young people. But the context of her struggle to access care wasn't even mentioned in the advertisement. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just about abortion or post-birth abortion. It's about killing you when the government cannot provide for you. It is a new year, a new me, and the government is still just as wicked as ever. Welcome back to Slightly Offensive. This is the best, worst show on the internet. We have confetti of self-inflicted medical-assisted suicide. I don't know how else to say it. It's what you'd expect. Don't forget to click below and like this video. It really helps us out. And if you're not subscribed, I don't know why you've been waiting. Don't forget this is an audio-only podcast as well, which means that it is free. You can download it. And please, if you have not already, leave us a 5-star review. You always wonder how to do these kinds of things. It's easy. Click the link, put the 5 stars, leave the review. It doesn't cost you anything, but it saves us a lot as we are fully demonetized. Thankfully, though, we keep the show on the air to our lovely advertisers, and I want to give a huge shout out to Goldco. Now, many of you understand that we are living in a turbulent time, and I'm just going to cut to the chase. You cannot afford to not invest in gold and silver, because many of you have been listening to this advertisement. Maybe it's your first time on the show and you think, oh, I have money in crypto in the stock market. Well, it's not safe there. Gold and silver has withstood the test of time. Even recently, gold has been skyrocketing, and over the last several decades, it's went up 1,000 to 2,000% respectively. The dollar's lost over 93% of its value, and I don't know, with FTX and different trading companies, sometimes your crypto disappears. So you need to invest in yourself and invest in something real with your 401k, your retirement, your savings. You cannot afford, literally, to wait. Call 855-242-4758. That's 855-242-4758. The number's in the description, or you can click the link, fill out the form, and they'll give you a call as well. I encourage you to do both. It's a great way to support yourself, support your financial future, and you can also support free speech on this show. Take your financial future back into your own hands. Don't leave it into those who want to destroy you. I encourage you right now, call 855-242-4758 and or click the link in the description. So, listen. Suicide, I get it. It's a complicated subject. I don't want to talk about it. My guest that comes on later today, ODESSA, she is in Canada. She runs her own talk show, and she's going to discuss more of this topic with me, what's really going on, the popularization as self-inflicted death, or we just call it killing yourself, as an alternative. And at Slightly Offensive, I've been wanting to talk about this because the reason why it's important is this is not just about targeting individuals who are near death or targeting individuals who have debilitating conditions that can't be diagnosed. This is a slippery slope. Right now, self-assisted medical suicide, or MAID, is now being offered to veterans in Canada as an alternative to waiting for the healthcare system to fix their health issues, really. A disabled Canadian Army veteran and Paralympian was blasting the government for offering to euthanize her when she complained about how long it was taking to install a stair lift at her home. It's from the Daily Mail. It's a real true thing. The government is calling veterans, even post-surgery, asking them if they want to die rather than continue treatment. So for those in the United States fighting for government health care, let me remind you, people are literally being offered death as an alternative. Christine Gauthier testified in a Canadian parliament on Thursday. Gauthier, a paraplegic veteran, sought help getting a wheelchair lift at home. A Veterans Affairs staffer instead offered medically assisted suicide, she said. Government probe found at least 4 other veterans were also offered suicide as a medical option. Now, Trudeau also called the trend absolutely unacceptable and vowed to end it, while he's also pushing vaccines on the population and saying those that are anti-vax need to be tolerated not much longer or dealt with, right? Okay, Hitler. Euthanasia has been legal for terminally ill patients in Canada since 2016, and of course it started with asking for those who were near death's door, but last year the law expanded to include people with long-term disabilities. Canada, which is called the Great White North, is usually known, though, for things like ice hockey, Tim Horton, and their kindness. Most people imagine Canadians as a happy-go-lucky, bunch of overly polite people that are very excited for you to come and just enjoy the weather and have a good time. And for the most part, that's honestly true. I mean, their government is beginning, though, to more closely resemble a death cult than an Arctic utopia. And that makes sense since their prime minister actually says, yeah, I look at China as a model for our country. Now, many are familiar with Justin Trudeau and his woke leftist policies. The man who pees sitting down is no new player in the world stage of global authoritarianism. But under his leadership, the Canadian federal government has morphed into a repressive Marxist state. They've thrown people in jail for online hate speech. Don't forget about that. They're among the most adamant pushers of the LGBTQ agenda, specifically on children. And they've essentially eliminated any sort of national pride. Trudeau has even described Canada as a, quote, post-nationalist state. This brand of radical multiculturalism is so extreme in that country that even the immigrants who have been pouring in are beginning to question it. It's like, you left Syria. Inshallah, my brother. You want your kid to be a homo? It's a question worth asking yourself. Now, this past year, Trudeau and his ilk led an apology tour for the alleged genocide of Indian children at Catholic schools during the early 1900s. They claimed that at one school in Kamloops, there were over 215 child remains from this event. Now, the only problem with these apology tours, like anything, is that they've never found an actual body. The only evidence they have for this so-called massacre is disturbed soil found with ground-penetrating radar. Now, as a result of this allegation, over 68 churches were burned in Canada last year, and Trudeau's ultra-woke agenda is literally incinerating the old culture and building gay bars on the ashes. Canada's newest woke crusade is even worse, as if that were possible. They are now on a mission to convince people to kill themselves through this new medical assistance in death program called MAID. Back in my day, the MAID was an immigrant. Some people that are 12 years old that can access Pornhub, it's their stepsister. And now MAID has gotten worse. You didn't think it could get worse, but now it's about killing yourself. It's cheerful. You have a maid at your house? Well, that may mean that you're dying. It's packaged under the guise of healthcare, like everything else that we hear today, and quality of life. It's satanic, it's demonic, it's backwards. Now, in reality, this program is so pernicious and concerning that even the most left-wing outlets in the US have described it as disturbing. Canada is not offering the medically assisted suicide program to the terminally ill. They're actually advertising it to anyone and everyone. Do you have depression and anxiety? Do you have a disability or a birth defect? Are you obese and don't feel like putting in the work? Well, say no more. We're here in Canada will simply put you to death. And that's not a joke. They actually are pushing for it for 1 year old to 12 years old if they can get past the new 12-year-old and older mark. They want kids to be able to kill themselves. So even more shockingly, though, Canada is actually advocating this program towards minors, which I just mentioned. The Canadian government is literally grooming children to accept the idea that if anything goes remotely wrong in your life, you should just end it all. And that makes sense in a socialist country. That makes sense in a communist regime. You're actually a burden, not an asset. It's disgusting, but think about this. They're saying that mental health is a key litigatory qualifier to get made. Okay, mental health disturbances. So they also say, too, that if you can't get surgeries, that's a second qualifier that can help make your life better. Now you get what the trans issue is about and what the next step of it is. They're going to say that you're mentally disturbed, and that's because you're trans. You're trans, so you need life-altering surgery. And then you can't access the surgery because it's government health care. Therefore, the only alternative to waiting is dying. And so the new program, which is medical assisted dying in Canada, will now offer suicide as the way out. They don't want your kids to be gay. They don't want your kids to be trans. They want them dead. That's what it's all about. The next step of post-nationalism is our governments killing us by our choice, taking advantage of the mentally disturbed and the weak, telling them that they're all trans and the only way out is death.